kings and queens and in-betweens. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Jess. And today we are also joined by my bestie.
I'm back.
Carly's back.
Carly.
Hello.
Welcome to the house. Just before we start this episode, we wanted to say thank you so much to the incredible amount of support and love you
So
guys
much
have given
support.
us already. We've had incredible interactions.
So many incredible interactions. We've been invited places.
Places.
We're doing live pods from weird spaces, and cool
spaces.
spaces and other people's houses.
all the fun things. So
All the
you'll be
fun
able
things.
to catch us somewhere at some point.
Yeah.
Just
Whether
in-
you want to or not.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just there.
And from that incredible amount of support, we are so glad that we can be a place of education and gives back to the audience that are listening and asking these questions. So today's topic is responses.
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, we released our 4th episode called Languages and Safe Spaces, and we talked about what maybe is or isn't appropriate language to use and what is offensive and not offensive to some of us in the queer community. And obviously, just to reiterate that again, it comes down to you as a person and what
Preference, I guess.
you might find offensive versus what someone else might find offensive. But we ran over a bunch of dumb shit people have asked us, and since then, we've had a lot of you respond with dumb things that you guys have been asked.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to read a few of those out. A few people have said that they're...
To ask to
they're-
please read it out on
Yeah.
the pod, yeah.
So we're going to read those out and we're going to discuss what that's like and if we've experienced that, and because a few of these we missed actually.
Yeah.
So it was lovely to hear, and we've got Carly here, so she's going to give her input on
Yeah, her own perspective.
her own perspective on
Oh,
these.
yeah.
So we thought we'll touch upon these today, and I'm going to start off with Emma S said, I identify as pansexual and I hate always having to explain the difference between pansexuality and bisexuality.
That's a very interesting one, I feel.
Do we in the room know the difference?
I feel like, to me, pansexuality is loving of everyone, like their personalities.
Yeah, I would have probably gone personality first.
not the
Yeah.
attraction
the
to a
gender.
gender or sexuality.
And because bisexual just comes down to male or
Male
female.
or female gender.
Pansexual, that then opens it up to dating,
Non-binary, people,
transgender. Yeah,
male, female. So
So
just more
literally
exclusive to personality.
just the person.
I think it's hard because being that person, you obviously are going to get sick of having to repeat yourself. But yeah, at the same time, you're like, well, we don't always know what these
Yeah.
things mean. And yeah, maybe that is up to us to kind of educate ourselves. But like sometimes you don't know if you don't ask.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
true.
a fine line.
I think that's what it comes down to. Like you said, education. And whilst we're trying to be a bit of that voice, a bit of that education, there's still so many new terms that we, even in the
Yeah.
queer community, are learning.
Yep.
I'm sure as our episodes progress as well, we're going to come across more and more terms that came out, like sapphic.
Yeah,
Yes,
sapphic.
that's a new one.
I love that
I did
word.
not know what that meant.
But now let's all identify as
Now,
sapphic.
well, we can't speak for other people.
No. But yeah, so I guess what we're saying is it can get hard to continue to explain, but I guess if we look at it from a point of view of we're just educating to make the world a better place, then
Yeah.
I guess we can continue to do that.
Let's just continue to having that inclusivity with everyone.
Yeah, and hopefully with podcasts like this, hopefully they get asked maybe a little bit less.
Yeah.
And they can,
Yeah,
relax a bit.
absolutely. All right, the next one, Alana H said, I've been asked so many times. This is a big one, guys.
Oh.
Does it even count as sex if you're two women?
Oh, no.
The
Everybody
dreaded-
just eye rolled in this room.
the dreaded, does it even count if you're two women?
Jokes on them
This-
because we are having better sex than.
Yeah.
It counts more so.
Yeah.
Do you know, I 100% believe that because it's intimacy.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
the intimacy, not just the penetration.
But let's talk about, how do you define sex? It's not just penetration.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
When we're defining sex, it's like intimate moments between people.
Yeah.
When a straight woman goes down on her straight partner, like her husband or her
Yeah.
boyfriend, do you count that as a sexual?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a sexual
definitely.
act. That's oral
100%.
sex.
100%. Still sex.
Still
in the end.
sex, yeah.
So why are we still being asked, does it count as real sex?
Yeah.
I guess the other thing is people will ask you, do you still count as not being a virgin if you've never had sex with a man?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that one.
Have you?
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Do
so
you-
what's your response to that? Yeah.
Well, I'm
Just
I'm
speechless.
obviously not.
Yeah.
Like,
Sometimes you don't know how to answer
yeah, it
stupid
is.
questions.
It really puts you on the spot. I think depending who it's coming from, can make it that more awkward. Whether it's like if it's a close friend and you're like talking about this sort of stuff openly and you feel that safe space to be like, oh, well, I'm happy to divulge,
Explain it, yeah.
you know, my history or things like that. But when it's a stranger, you're just like, fuck off, mate.
Yeah.
Like, I don't owe you anything.
Yeah, you don't owe people explanation.
That's
it.
exactly right. You don't owe anyone anything.
At the end of the day, you don't owe to explain yourself to a stranger on the street. Ultimately, you don't owe to explain yourself to someone in your close friendship circle. It's
No,
only if you
exactly.
feel comfortable enough
Yeah.
to educate them and take the time.
Do you think that also comes down to obviously the miseducation and the clear, I don't even know what the word for it is. It's not stupidity or naivety, but it's like obviously, and usually this comes from straight men or people who are really uneducated about the fact that because it's harder for us to conceive children
Yeah.
without IVF, then they're like, oh, that way it's not real sex.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to, I'm struggling for the word as
Yeah,
well.
see, it's in your brain, but you can't think of
Yeah,
what it
not
is.
naivety, ignorance.
Ignorance,
I think.
yeah, that's what it is.
Ignorance, to think that sex is just black and white, to
To have a
just
child.
penetration, to bear a child.
Yeah.
When ultimately, sex is supposed to be a very
Pleasure.
open, fun experience, and if
Yeah.
you're not openly exploring,
It's like what you said before, the intimacy side of things.
Yeah, if
That's what
you're-
sex is to
if
me.
you're not openly exploring different intimacy with your partner, then man, you're missing out.
Yeah.
You gotta find what really works for you, and sometimes you can have sex in a multitude of different ways. So
Yeah.
explore that for yourself and don't limit yourself to the boundary of just one thing.
And that comes down to communication with your partner.
Oh,
really.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I think too, coming from like a straight male, sometimes it might just be a chance to over sexualize.
Yeah.
You know, get in those little digs or like try and push you for like information or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just
What's
feels
the-
icky. Like,
Yeah, it does feel icky.
Yeah.
And what's the point of that as well? Like, I don't really understand when we are approached by straight men in that way and are pushed about sexual things. What is the aim? I don't know what the aim is.
No, neither.
I don't know.
It's like that attraction or resistance. When a straight man comes up to two women and tries to sexualize them and even go as far as going, oh, you know, are you up for a threesome, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that might have worked in the past with some other women. And, you know, I'm not out to say that you can't do those things.
Yeah.
But when the answer is no, don't keep pushing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just respect after the
Yeah.
answer is no.
Or
it's
then
like,
turn
oh,
nasty and be like, oh, well, you're just a bitch. Or,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
you're like,
Exactly.
you know,
And,
dirty lesbians. Or,
Yeah.
it just turns.
Yeah.
Because
feral.
as you said in the episode where we talked about your coming out story, you said you'd experienced that in a straight club.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where they just kept pushing, and when they realized that the answer's no, go away, and kept pushing like, oh, well, you're now like a slut.
Yeah, now
I'm
you're
like,
being...
Yeah.
I'm a slut because I wouldn't kiss this person in front of you. That
Yeah.
doesn't even make sense.
No,
Yeah.
it
Like,
doesn't.
It's like the first thing is just throw derogatory terms.
Yeah.
I think,
Exactly.
unfortunately, in the society, men are put on a pedestal, and that's just the way it is, which is really shit for all of us. And they're just used to getting what they want. So when suddenly there's a pushback, they're like, oh, I don't know
Yeah,
how to
they don't
react to
like
this.
that.
They don't
Yeah.
like it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Tilly A said, I can't count the amount of times that my partner and I have been mistaken as sisters or family members, and it annoys me.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You got that
As
one?
soon as you read that, I'm like, yeah, 100%. We always get, oh, your sisters. And
Really?
yeah, it's never, they assume we're together. Like,
Yeah.
never. It's always sisters, cousins, some kind of relation. And it's just, sometimes you think in your head, oh, it might just be easier to just
To
be like,
play
yeah,
along,
sure. But then
yeah.
in the back of your mind, you're just like, ew,
Yeah.
we are not related. Like,
Isn't that awkward though? It's like you're going to buy a house with your wife. Oh, your sisters. Oh, I'm going to buy a car with my wife. Oh, your sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I think we're up against that because society doesn't want to believe to some extent that two women can just be a
Be
happy
happy.
family unit.
but then
Yeah.
I hate when you correct them and be like, oh, no, actually, this is my wife. And they're like, oh my God, over apologetic. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
You weren't meaning any harm by it. It's
Yeah, like
just
my
an
puppy
assumption.
didn't die.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the assumption of sisters, though, sometimes I remember this story. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here. I remember this story of, well, it's relevant because we shouldn't assume people's partners or
Yeah.
people's family connections. I, back in the day, was working at a fruit shop, and there was a lady that I worked there with, and she had said to this young gentleman and the person he was there with, which was an older lady, your mum has already paid. And he was like, oh, that's my wife.
Oh, no.
So, to stay out of hot water, guys, maybe let's not
Don't make
assume.
Just don't
assumptions.
assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Catherine M said, when I tell people I am bisexual, they respond with, why can't you make up your mind, or are you just confused?
I hate that. That's so sad.
I mean, I've never come out as bisexual. Actually,
I have.
yeah, well, you did, yeah.
I did for most of my life. If you guys listened to episode 1, our very first pilot episode, when I spoke about our coming out stories.
You did. You said you came out as bisexual.
I came out as bisexual, and I don't think I ever had can't you make up your mind, but I think the thing that got to me was when getting in a relationship or dating guys, it was like, oh great, you're bisexual, you like women too, blah blah, we can have threesome. I'm like, fuck.
Oh,
It's like
so-
that immediate assumption that,
Yeah.
you're up for it.
Yeah, so the assumption was your male partners thought automatically, threesome.
Automatically threesome, automatically
because-
good time because you like women too.
You should have been like, yeah, with another guy. And then they would have been like, oh,
I would have been
change
like,
your mind.
I would have been like, yeah, but you can piss off.
Yeah. Bye.
Wow, yeah. This is delving into a little bit of my backstory that I haven't openly spoken about on the pod yet. My ex identified as pansexual, and that was like a big deal for her, even though I feel like it was widely accepted by me and our friends and all of that kind of thing. But I think that the thing that gets to me is she left me for a man.
Yeah.
And the immediate assumption when I have told family and friends that is, so she's not gay anymore.
What?
Yeah. Or I didn't realize that she liked men.
Oh.
And it's like, one thing that I really don't understand is I think some people have said it in a way like, at least she didn't leave you for another woman. Like that would have hurt
Yeah,
me less.
What?
It's,
Like it makes it better.
Yeah.
you're still leaving somebody for someone else. That still hurts
It's still
the same.
hurtful no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the assumptions about sexuality makes me really go, but it doesn't matter what they identify as,
No.
like sexual orientation wise. At the end of the day, this thing has happened, and sexuality is fluid. I can't
Yeah.
can't keep telling that enough.
Super fluid.
We've had some people come to us after releasing this podcast and said, I've never felt comfortable to say to anyone, but I actually think that I am this, and I actually
Yeah.
think that I am this, and I've had feelings for other women and things like that. And
Or they've just recently come out and gone, oh my God.
It does make it hard because you might be feeling that way and then go, okay, like I might date a woman. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, you're a lesbian.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
you're
it's like,
up
well, hang on
against
a minute.
all this stuff.
It's
Yeah,
just
all
the
of a sudden,
assumption.
just because of who you're dating, you're suddenly in this box.
The next thing with the bisexual label is if you're bisexual and you're dating a woman, that automatically labels you a lesbian.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the next thing you'll come. And because it's like,
Really?
if you're a bisexual but you're dating a man, well, you're straight.
Yeah.
So
I'd
people like
never
to
even
rip,
thought about that.
people like to rip the label off you and go,
But they want
but
to
you're
put you
this.
in the label anyways.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like just
It's
to
the
get the one they
never-ending-
wanted.
Freaking.
I find it hilarious. People outside of your own sexual orientation want to label you.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Crazy. Lara C said she's experienced comments saying, with your sexuality, aren't you scared that you'll be judged? Or what if one day you wake up and change your mind?
Oh.
So what if she does?
Yeah.
Can you just repeat that? Because I got distracted when you said Lara singing and I automatically was just like, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider.
She was,
I couldn't
she was,
stop
she was
laughing.
picturing like the hot video
I got
game.
distracted.
Lara
Triangle
Croft.
tits.
Yeah.
Triangle
Oh,
tits.
okay, yeah.
She
So
got distracted.
I'm gonna keep that in. That was funny. Lara C said she's experienced comments saying, "Aren't you scared you'll be judged? What if one day you wake up and change your mind?"
Yeah, that's hard. I think, yeah, you just got to do with what feels right for you. And yeah, if one day you don't feel that way anymore, well,
Sexuality
you
is
just got to
fluid.
live.
I think that's what you said before. Sexuality is fluid. It's totally up to you.
I think she was saying that like people have said that to her.
Oh.
Oh, people have said to her, oh, what if you...
Yeah, people have said to her, "What if one day you wake up and change your mind and aren't you
Oh, I think we misinterpreted.
Yeah.
aren't you
the
scared you're going to be
question.
judged?" It's like, well, yeah, we're going to be judged. We know that. And I think that's why so many people stay in the closet for so long.
Yeah, that's why we have the fear, right?
Yeah, but life's too short for that kind of stuff. You
is
just
too
got to go
short.
for it and whoever disagrees, and you just got to leave them behind.
I think that's the thing. Obviously, it can be really hard for some people, and we don't realize we might be leaving really important people behind. But if they're not willing to accept you for who you are, then they're not worth being
Yeah, are they
in
that
your
important?
life anyways. And I guess that's, like we've said in multiple episodes before, that's where our podcast comes in. We're trying to create that safe, inclusive environment.
But you have one life and it's so short and you got to live it the way you want to live it.
Authentically you.
Yeah, you have to be, because one day you're going to wake up and maybe you haven't done the things you want to do and suddenly there's no time left.
Yeah.
Yep.
My uncle was gay, very closeted, and we didn't find out until after he passed away.
Wow.
We were obviously going through his house when we had to finalize all of his belongings and everything like that. And we found all these love letters between him and another man.
Oh, wow.
And he just never got to be happy. And
Yeah,
I think
so that
about
makes me-
that.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it makes my heart hurt.
I think about that all the time and I go, guys, you know what? You might face some pretty hectic shit, but you have to find your happiness.
I think that also just goes to show how strong the Alphabet Mafia community really is with all the challenges we face.
Yeah. It's daily.
And
It
you'll
is.
find your people. I feel,
Yeah.
you know, in the beginning, it feels like this
Overwhelming.
huge, daunting thing where you feel like no one's going to understand. I'm alone in this. And yeah, once you find those people that we relate like on so many levels, and all that fear kind of falls away.
You find your tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
Carly and I unknowingly grew up together
Yeah.
Did,
We
and
found
now,
each
So
other
funny.
at 5 years old.
now we're in a lesbian cult.
Okay, so amongst these responses, we also had a response saying that when we're talking about who is the woman in the relationship, who is the man in the relationship, and obviously
Yeah.
the answer to that is we're in a gay relationship.
We didn't want the man.
No one fills the role of the opposite gender.
Yeah.
And that comes down to social expectations, social roles.
And like we said before, it's just lack of education, really.
Yeah, so the response to this particular comment that we made was sometimes that question gets asked as an icebreaker.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately there's plenty of other
Yeah.
icebreakers
There's
out
a
there.
lot.
I think you can ask, how are you?
Yeah, how are you?
How's your day been?
How is work? Is work busy?
What do you do for a living?
Yeah, look, there's plenty of other things to ask someone. And if you're going to ask something that might be offensive, even if you're not trying to offend that person, just say, oh, hey, sorry, I don't mean to offend, but you shouldn't ask someone that at the end of the day.
No.
It's a strange question, but I can kind of see where the idea comes from.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
it's they're not really asking who's the man, or it's like who mows the lawn, who
Yeah.
does those more masculine roles.
Yeah.
To be honest, I've asked my friends, which how do you two mows the lawn?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Because I find that stuff interesting. It's,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not out
But
of
I
like
feel-
a rude.
I feel like that's a better question to ask.
Yeah,
Just
it's
go
more
asking
like
who
pointed.
mows the
Yeah.
lawn
Yeah.
than who's
Yeah.
the man in the relationship.
Yeah, it's I don't know. At the end of the day, all those roles need to be filled in a house, and someone
Absolutely.
has to do it. So you know,
Who mows the lawn? Jim's mowing.
Jim's most.
Yeah.
I think it's like what we mentioned in this languages episode previously. It's about the way you approach
Yeah.
the question, essentially. So what you really just touched on before is saying, hey, look, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to offend. I just want to try and understand a bit better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of thing.
For education purposes.
For educational purposes.
And so the next point is, does tone matter when asking those questions? I want to jump in and say tone can matter in other ways, in responses to certain things. But I think at the end of the day, if you're asking an offensive question or you're asking something that someone finds offensive and they are then telling you that it was offensive, I think defending it by saying, oh, but my tone was this,
Yeah.
you're then just defending why you think it wasn't offensive.
Yeah.
yeah.
When really it's not up to one person to define what the next person should find as offensive or not.
Yeah.
I don't think it's tone. I think it's timing.
Yeah.
I think
Oh, I
if
like
you
that.
just
Timing.
met someone, maybe not appropriate, maybe down the track a few months, you've known them like a little while,
You
and
can
you're
strike
like,
up
hey,
that
like,
banter.
you know, out of curiosity,
Yeah,
you know,
that
who does
conversation.
this?
Yeah.
You know, who's the cook in your relationship? You
Yeah.
know, there's different aspects that we all take on, and yeah, I think
I
there's
definitely
ways.
like that. I
ways
like
around
that
it.
it's not tone, it's timing.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was a good
That's
one.
a t-shirt.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
It's not tone, it's
It's
timing.
timing.
That's good. Yeah.
That's good because I haven't even thought of that perspective.
No.
But it's right. It's not something you go right off the bat not knowing this person from the bar of soap.
Like I said, I've asked people. Like, maybe they found it offensive. I don't know. They'll
But
tell
they didn't
me.
tell you. Oh, well, they didn't tell you at the time. They just
No.
bitch about you later.
That's all right.
You mentioned before that you've had some pretty dumb shit.
Yeah, I've
yeah,
had.
yeah.
So, for example, someone in my distant family relative kind of said, "Oh, I always knew Carly was gay. How to my parents? How did you not know? I knew."
Oh,
and it's
that's
like, well,
offensive.
it's just kind of like a weird thing to say. Oh, you were thinking about the sexuality of like your family member
Yeah.
and as they
Yeah.
were growing up as a child.
I think that's
I kinda-
also
it's just weird.
yeah, I was gonna say I think that's kind of also weird because you yourself are trying to discover it. So you're
Exactly.
like, how did you know before I knew?
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
I had someone say that to me once actually at a birthday party. They were like, I always knew Jess was a lesbian. And I was like, because I hate the word lesbian. I was like, I am not a lesbian.
I'm
I
gay.
just-
I'm
Yes,
gay. But yeah, I think that really cuts into you a little bit because you're like, oh, I went through all these hurdles of self-discovery. and you-
Feeling like I was hiding myself pretty well, to
Yeah.
be honest.
And then you have this person go, oh, well, I always knew.
yeah,
It really cuts into you, hey?
yeah, it's just a bit of a fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you to your journey of self-discovery.
What
Yeah.
gave it away? My cargo pants or my flip-flops?
That was your bowl cut in grade 4.
My bowl cut. That bowl cut wasn't hiding anything.
I need to really have a bone to pick with your mother about some of the videos she keeps posting on
I
Facebook.
have a
Oh.
bone to pick about that bowl cut. Honestly, I said to you the other day, I'm like, some things you should tell your child no, and no matter how much they want it, it should be no.
yeah, yeah.
That was one
Explain
of them.
why.
I have seen that video you were referring to.
Yeah.
There's a few. Honestly, they will come floating back around.
Actually, from
God
our-
help us when this podcast blows up. They're gonna be everywhere.
I don't know if you remember this, but I remember specifically in maybe it was like grade 3 or 4, and you had said bowl cut. And I remember we went into the girls' toilets one day, and these girls from like a higher grade were like, shouldn't you be in the boys' toilet? Because you
Oh,
had
yeah.
short hair.
I did get that a
Oh,
lot as a child.
no.
A lot of the times we would go to like the beach, and I have a brother, and so growing up I was like, you're the coolest, I want to be just like you. And so we'd go to the beach, he'd be like,
Because you dress quite tomboy, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
I always envied his clothes over mine, and so I wouldn't, as a little kid, wouldn't wear a shirt to the beach. I just wanted to wear my bottoms, and
because that's what he was
That's
doing,
what he
and you
was doing.
idolized him. Yeah.
Why not? Free
we had,
nerds. Free
our
nerds.
bodies look the same.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it was no different. And yeah, a lot of the time my mum, oh, you're two sons. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
No.
And then it's funny because I then idolized you and what you were wearing that was like your brother's. So then I started dressing how you dress.
So
Yeah.
everybody was just free in the titties.
No, I mean, I still had clothes on.
She was modest about it.
Carly's like, oh.
But I remember back in those days, this is mid 90s, right?
Yeah.
So,
Because we're old, we mentioned in that.
when I first met Carly and, she was dressing like her brother, and then I wanted to wear what Carly was wearing. We would just wear like skateboard shirts and
Yeah.
board shorts. And
Yeah.
you just go out and you don't think about
well,
that
especially
you
as
look
a
like a
child,
boy
you
or a
don't
girl.
think about that fashion.
Yeah, exactly.
I vividly remember as a kid, my uncle went overseas, I think it was to Bali or somewhere, and how you'd get the rip-off clothes. And I think I maybe got a watch. I don't know. Whatever it was, I really wasn't interested in. And my brother got this matching set of Chicago Bulls, like
Oh.
shirt and shorts, which I thought was the coolest
You wanted
thing
to
ever. And
steal
I
it.
was just like, I want that. And he obviously hated it. He didn't want me wearing his clothes.
yeah,
And like,
yeah.
and I just remember recent years Factory and places like that have brought out, basketball shorts and
Yeah.
like the Chicago Bull. And it's in the girls section.
That's
I'm,
really cool.
Like, for like child me, it's such a moment of like, this is awesome.
That's
I
important.
think that's so beautiful, reliving the
yeah,
childhood
it's
joy.
like the one I wanted. And so
Yeah.
now I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to buy those fucking shorts.
And see, I think big clothes shops like Factory and stuff like that wouldn't think about the child in you
No.
that wanted to wear that back in the day and socially it was not acceptable, or maybe you weren't allowed or whatever.
Yeah.
But now to be able to be an adult and go, oh, hey, I can make my own choices and I can buy and wear what I want to wear.
Yeah. And it not just be, oh, I have to go to the boys section to
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
clothes that I like, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes I find the boys section always had better clothes.
They did.
Yeah.
They
And
did.
because I'm like 6 foot tall,
Yeah.
their t-shirts are like, it's all that fit me right now.
Yeah.
It's not like a crop
All right,
top,
Regina
you know?
George.
And do you find we've had other people say, like, you not having to go to the boys section is great? Do you have a fear attached to shopping in the men's section?
Probably in the very beginning,
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of just thought, oh, I hope they're thinking that I'm shopping for a boyfriend,
Yeah.
or like that was just the assumption that they would make. But now I'm
Don't
cares.
care.
Like,
It is
you're
what
going
it
to say something? Cool. Go ahead.
I feel like at the end of the day, women have always walked around wearing their boyfriend's clothes
Anyway.
since day
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
So what does it matter? Anyway,
Yeah.
clothes are clothes. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. The only thing that we can say in response to some of the dumb questions is if you can find a way to educate that person,
That's what it is.
definitely go for the education
Yeah.
side of things. Don't retaliate. It will never end well.
No.
And obviously, don't put yourself in danger if that's going to be the next step.
Yeah. I think everything just comes down to education. And I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of the questions come from an older generation
Yeah.
because they've been brought up in a society where being gay or being lesbian or bi or whatever, it was still quite taboo, still quite hidden in the closet, so to speak.
And like you said in your episode, Carly, it comes down to we think that our parents had a wider understanding because there was so many of us that presented as gay when we came out.
Yeah.
So they knew gay people.
Yeah.
And so it comes down to
It's
if-
the representation.
yeah, if you have gay people in your inner circle, it's much easier to understand and educate yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't have gay people in your circle or any queer people in your circle, in your community that are close to you, you're going to find it harder to understand because you haven't interacted with those people.
Definitely.
And you haven't taken the time to learn about those people. At the end of the day, we all bleed blood. We all bleed
Yeah,
red.
exactly.
We're all the
Yeah.
same.
I think if you are maybe going into, say, it's like family situation, or you know there's that one family member that always says something dumb, or like maybe just go in prepared.
Arm yourself.
Just know that,
Yeah.
okay, they're going to ask when I'm getting a boyfriend, or maybe have yourself prepared so it's not always just this shock and you're put on the spot and you probably walk away going, oh, why didn't I say this? Or, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, just go prepared.
Yeah. Good advice.
It is good advice. I think the thing is as well, you know, when you're a kid, discrimination isn't a thing. We all love each other.
Kids are so widely accepting
So widely accepting.
until they're taught not to be.
Here's a pet
Yeah.
rock. Cool, we're best friends now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and then, it's just that being taught
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So, it's just, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we hope that this episode provided some advice for you.
Some education, and like we've all said before in this pod, we're all quite very tough. Unfortunately, we've had to be
Yeah.
in the community that we're
You're tough
in.
because you have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But write in if you have any other things that you want to discuss.
Please, and we'll read it here on the pod.
But until then, remember to...
to
Stay gay, motherfuckers!
Woo!
I'm talking about, you're talking about, we're talking about just gay stuff.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Just Gay Stuff. Make sure to follow us at Just Gay Stuff Podcast on all your socials and write to us with your stories at justgaystuffpodcast@gmail.com.